I'm going to show you guys the biggest mistake that beginner investors make, and I'm going to show you how not to do it right now. So, you're thinking about getting into real estate. You want to build monthly income to supplement your job, and you hope that you can build up enough cash flow to eventually walk off your job. Good for you. I think real estate is an excellent vehicle in order to do that. But I want to caution you about your approach to real estate and just having that mentality. The worst mistake that you can make in real estate is buying a property wrong. And by wrong, it really means overpaying. Now, are there times where you overpay now and the market makes you look like a genius? Absolutely. Absolutely. But unless you're speculating, the reality of the situation is you need to be very cognizant of what you pay for something and how much it's really worth. And here's why. It doesn't matter how much cash flow you make. What really matters is if you get into trouble, can you sell it and get everybody paid back and still have money in your pocket? Because things happen. And I'll give you an example. Let's take what's going on right now with COVID-19. There are people, if they have equity and their tenant isn't paying and they want to cash out, they have enough equity they can sell, even with a bad tenant, and they will still honor their debts, honor their obligations, keep their good credit, and still put money in their pocket. Now, you take another situation where you bought a property at $400,000 that was worth $380,000. You think, no big deal, market's going to appreciate. Well, now you have a tenant in there, and I'm using single family just to prove a point. You have a tenant in there, all of a sudden, that's not paying. Now, how much do you think that $400,000 property is worth right now? Or better yet, how much can you sell it for? Doesn't matter what the comparables say. It matters what you can sell it for right now. And the reality of the situation is you can't sell it. So even if you were making $1,000 a month profit on a single family, even if you were doing that, once that person stops paying, you're in a position where you can't sell, and you're now going to have to come out of pocket to pay your lender back in order to hold face with them. And that's not going to look very well on you, and it can potentially damage your credit. Buying correctly means that you are buying in a position where you have equity, where you are buying for less than the property is worth. You should be looking at equity first, cash flow second. Say that again. Equity first, cash flow second. Equity will save you. Equity will keep you in the business. Equity is what you should be building. Cash flow is a result of equity. That's an important one too. Cash flow is a result of equity. Well, what do you mean? Well, the more money you put down on the property, the more it's going to cash flow. If you buy $1 million building and you pay $1 million for it and you don't have a mortgage, it should cash flow very well. Now, if you buy $1 million building and you borrow $1 million, it's not going to cash flow as well. Makes sense, right? You're going to have a nice hefty mortgage on that property. Doesn't mean the property is better because you put down more money. The reality of the situation is how much do you owe versus how much the property is worth. And if you have equity, okay, you can make good decisions. Now, if you don't mind paying $1 million cash for a property and that property is only worth, let's say, $950, and you feel strongly in the market that it'll bounce back and surpass you and you're making good cash flow, then God bless you. You don't have anything to much risk, right? Because you have your money. Now, granted, you can't sell right away, but you're not necessarily in a position where you're forced to sell. If that is not the case and you are borrowing money, you need to make sure that you're buying where you feel that there's equity in the transaction. And it could be buying into equity or creating equity. That's another video. But don't make the mistake of just looking at a property and saying, I can make $500 a month, and not paying attention to your position and potentially over leveraging or paying more than the property is worth and getting in a position where you were making cash flow at some point, and now you have 4 and 5 foreclosures going on at the same time. Now, I will say this as well. A lot of things I'm telling you, I can talk from experience. I've never had 4 and 5 foreclosures going on at the same time due to buying a property cash flow, but I have bought incorrectly before, and I have seen the results of that, and it's not fun. Trust me. So don't be a dummy like me. Do it the smart way, and make sure you pay attention to equity first. Until that time, G. Kelly Dixon signing off.